Hey there everybody, this is Lee with Creative2xmom. It's the end of September and that means it's time for another Books of the Month collaboration. So it's the end of the month and I want to share with you everything that I read this month personally, as well as all the books that we read with the kids. This video is actually part of a collaboration that is hosted by April at The Simple Rugged Path, as well as Ingrid at Mommy and Mia Homeschool Chronicles. I will link both of their channels down below, as well as the playlist. Now for myself personally, most of the books that I read were from my Kindle, so I will try to insert photos as we go. The first book was called Minimalist Homeschooling. Now I got this book free on the Amazon Kindle program a couple of months ago, and it's been sitting in my Kindle just waiting to be read. I didn't have real high expectations for it, and I'm actually really glad because to me it was just kind of I didn't feel like there was a lot of takeaway from the book. Even though I've been homeschooling for quite a while, I thought, well, maybe that's part of it. But I think even as a new homeschooler, I think most of the information was, for the most part, pretty common sense. Know your schedule, know your kids' teaching, know your teaching style, know your kids' learning style, only purchase what you really need, try to combine subjects. So for me, I really didn't get a whole lot out of the book. The second book that I read was called Staying Stylish. It's by Candace Cameron Bure. I liked it. I think the hardest thing for me was that I'm not a stylish person. It's not for me to just go out and go shopping and purchase things for myself, let alone fashion. So I kind of struggled with it, and I struggled with it being a Kindle book. Now I think had I purchased this book, even used, to be able to take it with me or to take notes on it or something, maybe that would be a little bit better. I will say something that I loved about the book was there was a lot of photographs, which on the one hand I kind of usually buy books for their content, but when a fashion book, I thought, okay, that's a good thing, so I can kind of visualize what she's talking about. And for me, at the age that I'm at, and the fact that I don't purchase hardly anything, any clothing, accessory items, I needed those photographs to help me through it. So it was kind of for me as well, but I think that's just because it goes against who I am. I kind of want to work myself into that, especially at the stage of life that I'm in, but it was just kind of hard for me to make that adjustment. The third book that I read was called The End of School. And this one for me, I actually put it down after about a quarter of the way into the book. I will pick it up again. I did find it very interesting. The problem that I had with it was that a lot of it was personal experience, whereas I was hoping it was going to be kind of a roadmap of where education is heading, where homeschool is heading, and it was to a degree. But so much of the author was in the book. It's a series of essays about the educational system, about how people learn, about the best way to learn. And so much of the author was his personal insight that I was kind of looking for something just slightly more objective. So that I can really think through how I'm teaching my kids and not just get somebody's personal experience. So I do think I will pick it up later. One thing that I found really valuable for me is I think this person thinks a lot like my oldest son, whereas I love to learn. I just love to absorb information and knowledge and put it into practice, and my oldest son has to really be engaged, almost like baited into learning, and otherwise he gets bored, he checks out. And the author seemed to kind of have that same bent, and so it was kind of giving me some insight into my kids. So in that way I think I will pick it back up. There were some interesting observations that I found about his character that kind of related to my own child. I do want to pick it back up and maybe read bits and pieces here and there, but it's not something that I found, for me personally, I just couldn't sit down and read it all the way through. The fourth book that I read this month that I actually really loved was called Elephant in the Garden. And this is a World War II story. It's loosely based on a true story of a zookeeper that is in Germany. And as the British forces are advancing from one side, the Russian forces are advancing from the other, and they have been told that all the large animals will be killed if there is a bombing. So this zookeeper convinces the head of the zoo to let her bring home this baby elephant so that she will be responsible for it because it's still a baby. And they are out searching for this elephant. It gets loose, her and her family, one night when their city is bombed, and they end up taking off, following this elephant who leaves, and they're following it, trying to get out of the city and get to safety. And so it's all about their journey and how they survived in World War II Germany and had to get to the British forces before the British forces bombed wherever they were because they're looking for safety. They run into a British soldier and have to decide. They have that classic internal conflict of, are they going to turn this guy in? Are they going to go with him? He says he's going to lead them to safety. Is he telling the truth? It's a young adult book. I actually read it to see if it would be something my daughter would be interested in. I loved it. She loved it. It's written at about a 6th grade reading level, and it's something that I think if you're studying World War II, it's one of those books that you could put into your kids' hands and feel pretty confident that they're not going to run into something, at least at that age, that they can't handle. It's not too deep. It's not too heavy on the war side of things as much as it is on the internal conflict of what do you do? Are people? Are they trying to deceive you? How do you see the enemy? How do you see yourself? A lot more on that, with still the setting of the World War II, what's going on in Germany at that time. Now, as far as books that we read to the kids, we actually did a lot of reading with the kids, and that was because we really utilized our audiobooks from our local library. And the first one that we read was the Mercy Watson collection. This is number 3. It's only it's not even an hour. It's 50 minutes, and there was 2 stories. And if you've read Mercy Watson, she is absolutely hilarious. She's a pig who tends to think that she's a human, and she's treated as a human by her owners, and she gets into all these crazy situations because she does what a human would do, but she's a pig. And so she just kind of gets herself into trouble. My 10-year-old still loves these. She was actually the one that picked this out and wanted to introduce it to my 7-year-old, who thought it was hilarious as well. The second one we read, I do not like this book, but I went along with it because it's my 7-year-old's one of his favorites, and that is the 26-story treehouse. There's a whole series of these. I think they start with the 13-story treehouse and they move up by 13 increments of 13. This is just too silly for me. I don't mind silly on occasion, but this was too silly. So about halfway through it, about an hour into it, we just kind of ditched it and said, we are not listening to this anymore. If you want to listen to it, pick up the book and read it, because we're done with this one. I mean, it's like the sharks ate their underpants, so they have to have open shark surgery, and they call the vet, and she makes them go underwater, and it just was too much for me. The third one we read, absolute classic. We've listened to this one again and again, Pippi Longstockings by Astrid Lindberg. This was about, it's 2.5 hours. Not long at all. Most of the audiobooks we listened to this month were pretty short. We've started a 4th already. We love Pippi. I think most of us know the story of Pippi Longstockings. She comes, she lives on her own, she does her own thing. She decides she needs a vacation, so she's going to school, because typically she just stays at home alone. And then you've got the 2 characters, the boy and a girl who live next door, who live a normal life, who are kind of her contrary, and you see all the hilarity that ensues as she's trying to figure out how you live in the world of people and not pirates. And then our read aloud this month was Hatchet by Gary Paulson. In the words of my husband, this is the most depressing read aloud book we have ever read with the kids. That's exactly what he told me. The first 3 or 4 chapters, he was like, this is depressing. Why am I reading this? And I told him he could put it down, and he was like, no, we're going to push through. So they have listened to it. They've not been grumbly about it. They've gone along with it, but I think they're all going to be really happy that it's over. This is the story of Brian. He's 13. He's been in a plane crash and crashed in the woods. Most of us know this story. It's a classic, and he has to learn how to survive. It is pretty bleak. If you've ever read My Side of the Mountain, I would say it follows a very similar feel in that you have this kid trying to survive, and so he goes into detail about what he does in survival mode, and this is how he survives, and this is what's going to happen. But there's no like real high spot, real like triumph. It's this just very continual trying to live, trying to make it to another day. So we're going to find something light and fun next. So that is all the books that I read throughout the month, as well as the books that we read through to the kids. If I were to suggest an absolute favorite, this one for the kids was a favorite for sure. And then, like I said, I loved Elephant in the Garden, and that's kind of a kid's book, but even as an adult, I think that you would probably enjoy it. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what was the best thing you read in the month of September. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.